Imagine losing it all only to have your luck completely turned around by that one magical lottery ticket. That's exactly what happened to these people today on 10 homeless people who won the lottery.
Glenn Williams. You know how the saying goes. The world is full of good people. If you can't find one, be one. That's exactly what Sophia Andrade from Massachusetts did, but little did she know what kind of an avalanche of kindness her little act of charity will set in motion. Sophia scratched a ticket and won $200, which really isn't all that much, but it made all the difference in the world for Glenn. He was standing along the side of a road in the freezing cold, begging passers-by for some spare change. Sophia gave him more than that. She took him into her home and treated him to some coffee and a hot meal. When she found out that Glenn didn't have a place to stay overnight, she used her prize money to buy him 3 nights at a local hotel. Then she started a GoFundMe on his behalf and raised a whopping $15,000 in 2 days. Glenn received many donations of warm clothes and other material aid, as well as a free haircut from a local barber. 9. The anonymous Californian man. While we don't know the name of this lucky winner, his hilarious story is sure worth sharing. Namely, unlike Glenn Williams, his lottery gift was a bit of a mess. Emily Leach, a resident of California, won $1 million from a scratch ticket and used it to pay off a medical debt. She had pancreatitis and a ruptured spleen, so the lottery money came like a fax from heaven. Sometime later, she won another $26,000 from another ticket, but this lucky second strike turned out to be quite a jinx. When Emily wanted to give some money to a homeless man, she gave him the winning ticket instead. The man in question said he actually bought the ticket from her, since he knew about her previous big win. He was hoping that her ticket would bring him some good luck. Emily, on the other hand, claimed it was an accident and that she wanted to give him some cash, not her scratch ticket. She asked the homeless man to share the prize money and immediately got figuratively whipped by the public. Asking a homeless person for money isn't a good idea when you're already a millionaire, especially when the scratch ticket store clerk said she gave the ticket away intentionally. Due to the media frenzy surrounding the event, the homeless man in question asked to remain unidentified. 8. Wilbur Herbert Jr. After Mr. Wilbur Herbert Jr. wound up homeless, he lived on the streets for several years. He was declared to be disabled, so he couldn't get work even though he wanted to. Fortunately for him, he had a brother and a sister-in-law. They managed to reconnect, and his family did all they could to help Wilbur get back on his own 2 feet. In January 2016, encouraged by his sister-in-law, he invested $2 for a single line of numbers in the famous $1.6 billion Powerball jackpot. He actually played once before, several years earlier, and won $500. This time, he was so sure he wouldn't win anything that he actually slept through the draw. The next day, however, he got a beautiful surprise. He was a winner. Although he didn't score the grand prize, he did win an amazing $50,000, which is quite a bounty for a man in such a dire situation. 7. Steve BORIK. Not all lottery wins are a happy piece of news. Steve BORIK from Vancouver in Canada found himself in one of the most frustrating situations you can imagine. He won a lottery prize, but wasn't able to collect it. Steve was made homeless after his marriage fell apart and survived taking various temporary jobs. He was depressed and dragging along a medical debt when he took his Lady Luck for a first date and played an $8 Keno game. Lady Luck smiled and he won $25,000. However, he was unable to claim them because he didn't have a valid ID. He actually lost it and never had a need to replace it because he was homeless. Now, he couldn't get a new one without a copy of his birth certificate, but he couldn't get a copy of the certificate without an ID. Thankfully, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation lent him a hand, and he collected his winnings 8 months later. He rented a condo and got a steady job at a construction company. 6. Dennis Mahurin. Going back to the saying from our first story, Dennis Mahurin turned out to be one of those selfless souls who are a gift to everyone around them. He was living in a tent in a homeless people camp in Bloomington in Illinois. He had been there for 20 years. One day he bought a scratch ticket and was shocked when he discovered that he had actually won a prize, $50,000. However, instead of buying new clothes or renting an apartment, Dennis just got himself a somewhat bigger tent and divided all the rest of the lottery money among the homeless people of his community. Well, we all know what they say. No one knows the pains of poverty better than the poor man himself. 5. Crystal Nelson. This old lady proved the truth behind the well-known motto, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. Her first encounter with the lottery brought her $1,000, but she still ended up living in a truck with her friend. Imagine how depressing it must be to call a random parking lot your home. However, Crystal was a tough old lady and did everything she could to carry her own weight. She worked as a carrier for a local newspaper, and one day she bought a ticket for the Powerball, the same game which got Wilbur Herbert Jr. out of his troubles. They even won the exact same prize, $50,000. Crystal actually decided not to change her lifestyle, but to take the change one day at a time. She decided to buy a little place of her own and then to visit her brother in Arizona. She hoped to help him pay off his house so that he could have a roof to call his own too. 4. John Michael LeBlanc. He is another example of how a lucky break can turn around and bite you in the leg. John Michael was actually prosecuted for cashing in a winning check. He found a scratch card worth $260 and thought it was his lucky moment. Unfortunately, that luck was short-lived. The card actually belonged to a woman who accidentally lost it in the street. And even more unfortunately, she had a photo to prove it. She had reported it missing at a local police station, and John's logic of finders keepers didn't really impress the magistrate. Not only was he ordered to pay back the winning money, which he already spent on a bus ticket, but he was also charged an additional $130 for the theft. Talk about brutal. It wasn't all hex and jinx though. Cameron and Kylie, a couple of local residents, stood up for the homeless man, paid his fine, and spread the word. They raised $1,300 for him. 3. Michael ENGFORS. This gentleman's story happened in Aspen, in Colorado. Michael spent 6 years on the streets after the collapse of his business and a divorce. He stayed at a local homeless center whenever he had the chance, and one day he spent $10 on a lottery ticket. Imagine his shock when the results came in. He had won a head-spinning 500,000 green ones. He spent the weekend following his victory sleeping on the floor of the shelter before the shelter director could drive him to the office of the lottery to claim his big winnings. Can you guess how he used the money? Forget fancy hotels or furious cars. ENGFORS decided to use his new treasure on reconnecting with his daughter and buying a pair of skis. Now there's a man of simple pleasures. 2. Josh Bryant. Welcome to the Windy City, better known as Chicago, Illinois. This is where the incredible story of Josh Bryant happened. He was injured in a car accident and got buried under an avalanche of medical expenses. His job brought him only a minimum wage, and that was nowhere near enough for the hospital, rent, groceries, and everything else. Josh filed for bankruptcy, went homeless, and started taking up all sorts of odd jobs, consistently refusing to beg for spare change. One day, he helped a man move his furniture, which earned him $20 and a lottery ticket. He scratched it and found himself the winner of $200,000. This allowed him to pay his debts, move into a decent apartment, and get a steady job again. Now he is a fast food manager and an inspiration to his employees and customers. 1. Derek MABOUSSOU. This is a unique case on our list because Derek himself isn't a homeless person, but he is a sort of patron for his local homeless community in Omaha, Nebraska. Along with 8 of his co-workers, he participated in the office's lottery pool, which brought them an astonishing jackpot of $365 million. These 9 people divided the winnings among themselves, and Derek used his share to help the Sienna Francis House Homeless Center. Here's what he does. Every year during the Christmas season, he purchases a huge bunch of $45 Walmart gift cards and gives them to the center. He decided on this idea along with Mike Sackler, the director of the Sienna Francis House. Mr. Sackler says that the holiday season is especially difficult for the homeless, and now Derek's donations are considered a tradition. They've been going on for 10 years.
This couple was scaring people in Auckland with their masked faces and creepy demeanor. Several people reported seeing them sulking around the area. Why would somebody be doing that? Number 10. Peekaboo. Look, everyone's ready for a girls' night out.